Gunned up, brain dead, can't decide. You can't bring enough, you can't hide. You can be cool or you can cry. Do it wrong, not at all, or do it right. No one owes you, no one's to blame. Sit for bad genes or DNA. Ask your conscience the why and how. Do it then, do it when, do it now. What's up, sweet cakes? Who's here? Easy. What you gonna do, little buckaroo? Yeah, you gotta do. People is asking mom. No, we all can be super fly. GQ, PhD, FBI. You can greet, send them, you can try. Move ahead, lay down dead, or stick on by. When the truth seems so far away, who loves you and Jesus? You need answers for your dismay. To say, ask your mom, ask DNA. What's up, sweet cakes? Who's hit? Easy. What you gonna do, little buckaroo? Yeah, ask your mom. Just ask your mom. Ask your mom. Yeah. What's up, sweet cake? Who's head? Where good girls? Easy. What you wanna do, little buckaroo? What you gonna do, little buckaroo? All you gotta do, happy. Mom.
I think it's time to blow this thing, get everybody in the stuff together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, jam.
Oh, hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 9 of No Cap Gaming, brought to you by Warp Chain, the new gold standard for game publishing. I am Aero, head of ecosystem at Warp, and your host for the show today. We don't have Matt today. I'm afraid he is either waiting for a flight or on a
You
flight.
might want to unmute on X if you want to speak.
Oh, what am I doing?
I was watching his mouth move, and I was like, "This audio is phenomenal."
Are we even live on stream?
It's piercing. I think we still can't hear you, my friend.
You still can't hear me? It's not letting me mute.
You need to unmute on X.
I'm trying. I'm trying. Hello, hello, hello,
Oh
hello.
man, it's not working for him, I guess.
Hello.
Hard.
Hello.
Yeah, it was coming in and out just for like a split second.
Hello,
No.
hello, hello, hello. Let me
I
try
love
something.
Hero's voice.
So, well, it's a new week, a new episode of No Cap Gaming. Sadly, this week, Matt won't be joining us because he's in travel right now and a very low battery while on transitioning from the UK to Netherlands. So this week is going to be an interesting one. Can't wait to get all the things working. Since X has been rugging us very nicely today. But hey, how you doing, Shao? Netherlands. So this week is going to be an interesting one. Can't wait to get all the things working since X has been rugging us very nicely today. But hey, how you doing, Shao?
Doing well, my friend. There's a lot of things to talk about, right? I think the gamers, we're all here.
Let's try to see if Aero is back.
Yeah.
Testing.
Is it working for you now?
Testing.
Oh, beautiful.
Man, every time I clicked unmute, it just muted again, just in front of my eyes.
I've had that before.
I've never had that.
It's a classic X rug trick.
Yeah, I think they're playing with us tonight. Well, actually, they're playing with us every night, aren't they? Thank you for taking the reins, though, you guys. Yeah, it's a shame we don't have Matt today, but we do have you beautiful people. We've got some people in the audience. We're going to have some more guests coming. Really excited. This is episode 9 of No Cap Gaming, brought to you by Warp Chain, the new gold standard for game publishing. I am Aero, head of ecosystem at Warp, and your host for the show today. And we are joined by these lovely people in front of you. We've got Shao, we've got Grimlinks, we've got Ophid. I think we've got some more people coming later, and I am looking forward to this. We are live on X Space today, Grim, or are we elsewhere as well? Are we streaming yet? Have we managed to get X streaming work?
Wow. I think X is giving us some trouble as it was to you. Directly, I see that we are live on Twitch and YouTube right now. X right now isn't, but I'll try to get it working.
Yeah, X gonna X. Yeah, let's get into it. Good topic today, I think. Wen TGE. We're not going to go too kind of crazy on the token side of things, but it's more about community, how to kind of deal with the mixture of expectations we have in this industry. It's always a challenge, and we'd like to hear what you guys' takes are. Easier said than done, right? What do you think? Where do we start? Do we get straight into it, or what's your main principle here, Shao? What's your number one fundamental when it comes to expectations, TGEs, and making a community happy?
So I think what we need to do is manage expectations, not necessarily in terms of like what TGE is, but like where we are in like the life cycle of, Web3 gaming, right? When you're talking about the grand days where things went to the moon, similar to a meme coin, and it was able to relatively sustain, you saw a lot of that in, the end of 23, but it was like the first 2 tokens, right? It's like the Cambria, right? It's like, anything that comes into space, even abstract meme coins, right? There's a saturation, virtual agents, there's a saturation. Once you hit a kind of a critical mass, then you just start seeing everything fall in a safe cycle, which is hype and speculation. I've gone through enough of these cycles. This is probably like my 3rd cycle of understanding of how Web3 tokens work and Web3 gaming. I've been kind of an observationist or analyst in the way these kind of things perform. And I feel like, when you hear some of the grails of the world who've been definitely in this space, who've been managing and understanding these things, it's been very problematic because, when you're early in on these pre-seed rounds as an investor or VC, you're starting to see people having these long delays, and it's beyond expectation because they're not hitting things. Long blurb short, it's going to be about maturation and driving expectation with education. And long story short is, I believe the goal as a founder or as someone like yourself who's been building on a chain is actually to remove the hype and speculation, so that way you could have a natural organic price discovery. And all of that's not exciting, I think that's the most sustainable. So what you saw like Xborg do with their token, where they went purely DEX, you saw natural price discovery. You weren't having the involvement of central exchanges. You weren't seeing, people basically buy in and cheat out. You saw people actually hold. And if you have an ecosystem that comes along with it, because of the maturation, because of actual development of the game, the community, you saw people hold. And I think a lot of that also comes down to distribution in terms of, who your demographics are. If you're working with engagement farmers, if you're working with people, who are more the hype cycle are quote unquote investors, you're going to see them exit. And then the question is who's coming back in? Who's going to be your actual sustainable community that actually will be there for you in the long run? So long story short, I apologize for ranting a little bit. It's just, I've been part of all of these things where I feel like, again, there's an evolution, there's a sea change where we need to manage people's expectations to remove some of that hype and speculation. But to be fair, if you're looking for TVL, you want all of that, right? So it's a balance, I believe. I just tend to be on the builder side where I want sustainability. I want normalization as much as possible, instead of just these up and down cycles that you normally get as part of any token.
Well, you say that as a builder, then. So, as a consumer, then, how do you treat other builders as if you'd like to be treated, or are you there when TGE, when TGE?
No, the latter, because for me, I can't. It's hard. I don't have the time, right? Like, if you're going to be a general consumer of tokens, then you're going to have to just lock in. You're going to have to be in the trenches and just watch and then exit, right? Have different entry and exit points as real investors do, because that way you can DCA in, you can go in with volume, you can do all these, more traditional things that investors do in terms of token generation events. But I feel like if you're not that level of education experience, you're gonna usually lose. And I hate losing, because I got in here to build. And when you lose your liquidity and you lose your capital, it just stagnates everything, because what you're doing is you're minimizing your runway, right? So it's the same thing with whitelist. If you come in with a 10,000, expectation, right, at 10,000 NFTs a collection, and now you're down to 5,000, you just cut your runway in half. So it's you're still subject to so many of these things. I would love to hear how you feel. Obviously, you've experienced these things in and out of these different cycles. Like, do you take a more modern day approach, or are you looking some of the things of reliving the past in terms of, I'm getting the highest market cap and then kind of managing as it goes in terms of ebb and flow?
Honestly, I think that's a really good question. I think, in my opinion, Xbox broke the latter.
Mhm.
Did I say Xborg or Xbox? I definitely meant Xborg. Xborg, I think. Welcome, Matt, as well. We do have Matt here finally. Did you manage to get to the end of your flight, or are you still waiting for it?
I'm currently here in the arrivals of Arlanda after a 3-hour delay, most of which was on the fucking runway. There was some crazy issue with GPS
God.
today.
I can imagine you twitching there, like,
Dude, I nearly I was so hot, I nearly just melted through the plane like alien blood. It was that bad today.
I miss his voice and his humor. It's good to
Yeah,
have
it's
him
always
around.
And
good.
also, FYI, X is rugging. You probably need to update. Yeah. Just go on. There's an update. It made it better for me. Before it was a shit, and everything was rugging out.
Or you can follow up through our link tree. You can find us on Twitch. You can find us on YouTube. You can watch us live there if you'd prefer. Multi-platform. But yeah, going back to your question, Shao, it's tricky. I think Xbox has changed it in a good way, because it's certainly, in my opinion, a way better position for your community, especially as a lot of projects don't need hundreds of millions. Some projects at the early stages probably shouldn't be raising way more than they really know what it means. But when you
say that, though, money is the best moat. I mean, if you're retarded, you might as well raise 10 million. because you're sure as hell not going to make it with one. It's
Well-
more like the other people giving you that money are even more retarded than you. That's the issue.
But
If you're like semi-retarded and you raise 10, you can completely fuck around with 5, and then you somehow make it with the other 5, hopefully.
well, the thing is, either way, you're probably going to get slayed if you're not managing your expectations properly, right? The good thing about starting lower down is that you can kind of look for that upwards price discovery, and I think that's a much
Yeah,
nicer
that's true
story
for
to
the token.
tell.
That's true for the token, and I do see a lot of VCs saying, "Oh yeah, you've got to raise small and then go up." That works if your company works, but there are plenty of companies that just kind of exist because they raised a lot, and because they raised a lot and are capable of raising a lot, people will give them a lot of money in the next time, even if they haven't achieved anything of note. And I think that's just very interesting. If you're a company that raised 1 mil at some point, and then you start a new company, you'll probably raise 1 mil again. If you're a company that raised 50 mil and then just nosedived, you'll probably raise 50 mil again when you start. It's just, I don't know, man. It's weird. It's like unit bias on Bitcoin versus, a Satoshi could go up 10 times. People are still going to be like, it's too expensive.
But when you're talking about community, though, it's about like making people happy, right? It's not just about getting the money in and what you can do with the money. It's really just, and I think it comes back to more fundamental things than that when you're dealing with community, and that is having enough conviction and building enough conviction in your people around you. If you say there's a delay, I mean, it's kind of just so cliche now. But if you say there's a delay, or if you say that something's changing, or things aren't looking the way that people want them to look, they at least have faith in you, and they trust in you making the right decisions. Because the one thing is, right, if you do as a business determine that now's not the time for TGE, or something needs to change in your plans, then your people should have faith in you to make that decision and make that call, because they're certainly not in the day-to-day meetings. They don't have visibility of everything. And I think if you have conviction in your plans, you shouldn't be flipping them just because people put pressure on you. People who might not have the kind of knowledge and information that you have around what you're building.
That's a good point. I do also, looking at this from the point of view of community now is different from community back in 21, is different from community back in 2016, 2017. People would like to say, I think actually people in 2017, 16 were more knowledgeable in a way. We have got definitely different expectations. A game is expected to just pay people as soon as it exists, as opposed to you're expected to actually contribute money, and that money goes up. Early games and early projects were treated like investments or meme coins where you put money into them. Nowadays, no one's expecting to put money into a game. So for games in particular, it's very difficult for them. They're trying to live in a world where people expect to put in playtime and get money out of it. And if you do not deliver that, you're a scammer for giving them something free or not giving them something free. I can understand being called a scammer if you expected everyone to put in $500 and then they get nothing out of it in the end, and you're telling them it's a fantastic investment. That's what Axie was. Axie had a buy-in. You had to buy some Axies. And those things went up in value massively, and people still bought in. Like, DJing games with high buy-ins do not work in the real world, but they do work in our space, which is very, very interesting.
It is interesting because I think that's a really good question. But for me, I have an answer for myself, and I'm high conviction on it. I do still think that there's at least nowadays with the developments that we have in terms of regulations and things like that, there are more ways now than there were before of separating and kind of managing the speculation as something separate from a user base of the platform and that kind of marketing, right? Because especially in gaming, you're not likely to find a user base that will make your business successful in the long term simply within this small Web3 bubble that we're in. In my opinion, I think treating something more speculatively can actually be quite a good way of like removing the actual end user. That's speculation. That's an end user. People who speculate, they can say Wen TGE as long as they don't destroy it for everyone who's here to play a game.
As long as you can actually like stump up the cash for it. Then what happened to the other speakers? Did they just explode? We
We do have Ovid in there on the panel here. We also have Tech Talks. So I'm going to send it to Tech Talks before Paul. Ovid, but Tech Talks, welcome to the stage. Great to have you here. Also, just a big shout out to everyone in the audience. We've got David, we've got Prime, we've got some zero cool people here. If you would like, that would be great if you could share, comment, anything that you'd like to do, get the space out there. Share for us, please. Let's get this pumping. And Tech Talks, welcome to the stage. What's your take on this?
Take on this is this space is all about gambling. It's basically everybody's out to look out to make a buck, and I really think we need to focus on Web 2 gamers and stop treating this like a massive casino. And I think the focus, like was saying, was like everybody's looking to get paid as soon as a Web3 game launches, and we need to really, really, really steer clear of that, because that's one of our biggest problems here, and that's why they fail. Because it's like, how many games do you go out and play? With the 1 million+ games that are launched every year, how many games actually pay you, but people still play them? So we're just focused so wrong on this whole thing.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that.
I mean, like, one of the things that Dan brought up is this whole thing of like games paying you. Like, games pay you in their own currencies to play, and they pay you in like what you get as experience points, and you can cash those in when you level up for upgrades and making the game more fun. But largely, if you were to extract any of those, if you were to just take a regular game, and if you were to extract any of those currencies, you're actually making your experience worse, right? So this is the fundamental design change we have to sort of consider. If you are to extract, let's say, the gold you're earning, you then can't buy that piece of equipment. You then can't do that thing that makes your game more fun, but you get money for it. So this is where, like, I think the warp theory of not using the same models or not publishing things that just try to ran their head against the a wall of basically, if the market goes up, the game goes up, and that's the only hope we have. I really like to actually jump into the weeds and dig about that, because communities have been educated by the games they play. And we've created a huge community of gamers playing unsustainable games that don't work. So because how do we educate these guys to understand what would work and how to play those? Yeah.
You can't help but think that a game that was successfully in the early days, early enough for the average investor, if a game is successful enough to actually create an early flywheel where people are making really good money from launch, there's either that's not going to sustain, or the expectations are going to get far too wild for it to be sustainable anyway. It's just an impossible expectation. If you just create something that is designed from the beginning to just make people loads of money. Do you think?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I was just wondering if Shaolin would weigh in.
Yeah, so I think this really depends, right? I think it goes on to 3 different planes. One, chain. And I say this because chain usually leads the culture, right? Usually see, PC gaming, mobile gaming. Sometimes you see a combination of the two. I think it does depend on device in terms of like access. So, with D-Lab Games, we've pivoted from PC to mobile, and then mobile to in-app with Ton and Kaya. And then what I think it comes down to also is like distribution. Who's your audience? Is it tier 3? Is it tier 1? I see the narrative shifting and changing based off of these different variables because D-Labs has done things differently. We were supposed to have TGE over a year ago. We've seen the speculators go out, and we've actually because of in-app mobile games, bringing on more gamers who are casual gamers tapped initially, and then pivoted to like a really strong base in Japan and Korea with Kaya. It's changed the dynamic literally for us in terms of community mindset, the community shift. I think we talked about it before. What I love about our Korean community is that they are the salty mother-in-laws, and that they're hyperactive, right? In terms of their voice, they are always fudge you. They will troll you. They will give you the feedback. But what they don't do is they don't cheat. They are diamond hands. So these are the same people when you talk about onboarding Web2 gamers into Web3. Yes, we have an existing base, of community that have been with us, but we started to see the shift of people coming in and doing kind of the play to earn component of it, because at the end of the day, what we've done is we've utilized leaderboards to actually reward people for the ones who spend and actually play the game versus sitting on the sidelines, holding NFTs and holding tokens. Is we're actually able to infuse that liquidity back into the gamers as our reward system. So we are able to go and shift the Web 2 to Web 3 because instead of being paid by points, you actually do get rewarded within our ecosystem with Kaya, so that you can actually, stick it back in, you can pull some out. And again, it's finding that level of sustainability that I think most ecosystems have a hard time with. What I give you a counterpoint, right? You look at Pirate Nation, complete degen, on-chain gaming. It was great for the first 2 seasons. Season 3 hit and everything shifted because of the lack of sustainability that they saw on their end, because people weren't buying more token, people weren't buying into the ecosystem. So it's just finding that middle medium that I think matters. But again, I think it depends on who your audience is, because if you find the right people, and again, it stabilizes, then you can see runway happening later and later, where you can have a 6-month year out. But otherwise, you got to bring in the diehards who really have conviction in the ecosystem. And we've been able to find that with our Japanese and Korean audience. Then you can see runway happening later and later, where you can have a 6-month, a year out. But otherwise, you got to bring in the diehards who really have.
Well, I was just waiting for Arrow to come back. At least
I think he's frozen.
I feel like today X is having some serious issues. At least from the PC side, I was trying to load it several times and it wouldn't just pick it up at all.
I mean, X is having some major issues for me as well. I feel like today X is having to hear the space properly. Even I just kept losing the PC side, some people. I was trying to now I've done that. And it I've also buying bus tickets, so I couldn't respond to that fantastic take. But yeah, the communities are different, and I think that it's about setting tone. I just kept losing. Setting tone and setting expectations. Yeah, now I've done that. Tell people you used to do white papers and expect people to read it. Someone comes into a game. You have a white paper. I don't know why a lot of these games even had them. And I think that it's probably because they thought they were financial instruments and not actual real games. But if you have that, you should probably have that because people expect it. Tell them to read it. Make sure they understand it. Ask them questions on it. Give them little prizes if they understand why you're doing this and what it is. Because if you have a community that's not like diehard, like we were talking about, then you need to educate as to how they come up. Because at the end of the day, we want to come up. We want others to come up. We want to use the massive power of games to redistribute some of that income in a cool and a fun way to get more people excited and get more people into the game. There's nothing wrong with using the earnings of the game to incentivize people to come in. It's just a different method from doing it from advertising, paying them directly through skill or through whatever. So that's kind of my point.
On that note, I want to chime in because I think it's very important that the companies that are building now, they focus on a business model that relies on the players, but also redistribute, the energy and wealth that's generated in an organic way that allows the community to thrive. What we have seen until now, and this is why the flaws of the project that tried to build in the past several years that have not been successful was a very extractive mechanic where the project would take as much as they wanted once the fund that they had cut aside for development ran out. They were like, oh, sorry, we ran out of runway. But in the end, they pocketed that money and they didn't provide enough energy or they didn't have the right structure to allow this project to become something more. Because if you think about it, you just need the foundation. If people are compelled by what you built, and they enjoy it, they invest $10, $5, like you saw in Axie Infinity, they became a $600 million business at their peak, even close to $1 billion. Sandbox is worth around that amount, regardless of the fact that right now they've changed drastically their business models. For example, the latest season, they allow people to buy in a 30 soul alpha pass to benefit sand alpha pass, which allowed if you played the game to earn more than 60 or 80 sand back. That is a model that works because people have to purchase skis, they have to purchase the little items that you can keep for yourself because the benefit is also having let's say NFTs that you can trade and use. There will be a limited edition of them, so you can only buy so many. This is coming into the right direction, but it's taken them a lot of time before they figure out, just selling land and just trying to be extractive with thousands of dollars per user was not a viable model that allow
I mean, anyone sensible who's actually played games or or knows anything about sort of game finance would understand that. And I'm kind of surprised at the amount of economists and people from business who got into trading and did that actually believed in those models, because they're the very same people who says a command economy doesn't work. You have to let the market decide. These are the same people who say you cannot control an economy like say a communist kind of state where you just agree that this and that should be this price and all the rest of it. The market should set the value for that. And it was working early on when land was like, everyone was going crazy for it because they saw the potential. But then it got into the point of like, okay, now we have to divide tiers of rarity for NFTs for games that weren't coming out. And it was all artificial. There was no market value. And it was kind of like that whole sort of tulip thing where everyone was buying like ridiculously expensive tulips. And then one day they all just stopped. And that's literally what happened. One day they all just stopped. There were no royalties on NFTs. So there was absolutely no reason to stimulate a market anymore for NFTs. Because land's changing hands, even for like a little bit each way, was actually a net plus. And people were actually trying to think this was a potential business model. And just the trading alone, you can capture something from it. But the problem was you can't determine the value of any of these NFTs, of any of this land without players. I literally met someone at the AVAX Summit who was trying to tell me this exact same thing, not really a gamer, definite dev, pretty good dev, was trying to tell me that, you don't need to have like, you can do the skins market first before you do the game. And I was like, dude, the only reason people buy skins in that game is because it's incredibly popular. Like this game has been going for so many years and it's so popular that people see a value to those skins. And yes, there are people who trade only the skins and never play the game. But that's because the years and the millions of people have gone through that game and given it value. And this is what we forget. We need to give our projects value. I mean, you can speculate on whether the project will have value, but so far we've been wrong in who's the kind of people who should be building these projects, who's the kind of people who can actually sustain value on this, and the actual methodologies. I haven't seen a single game run by tokenomics experts or any of these tokenomics experts or consultancy companies actually have any fucking hits on their portfolio. Like
lots of tokenomics experts, but not many tokens that are resilient to anything.
Or successful games or successful game economies. And I think the communities are the one who suffer the most. Because if you look at how much it was extracted from Axie communities and how many people had like good and bad experiences, for every single one of those people who's gained up and now have like managing a fund because of Axie, because they got in early enough, there's people who bought $500 worth of Axies that were suddenly worth nothing and basically lost like their chance of becoming something massive, That's the danger. You bring in that kind of style of economy, you're going to piss off gamers who value loyalty and consistency, Like doing a sequel, people get pissed at changing the small things. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack, really.
I think back in 2021, and I mean we've talked about it recently, but you just can't help but miss it. I think it was quite a different scenario in the sense that it felt more dominated by retail. Although, I mean, even earlier than 2020, it felt like everything was more a community-driven thing. Nowadays, the community are the last ones to find out everything, the last ones to be appreciated when it comes to the business is struggling or the token is struggling. And it's not just them who are saying Wen TGE, it's all of the investors as well, right? So you have this situation where everyone's saying Wen TGE, but the community themselves are probably the ones with the least transparency. They're probably the ones with that really get valued last. And that's exactly what we didn't want to happen. Right? The whole point of this industry was that you can bring the community in, that they are your priority to bring in, but because things have got so saturated in the attention that, saturated in the sense that it's so hard to gain mind share.
Small community.
And money is, exactly. There's not that much money in the retail side spread so far that you need to go to investors to fund something of real significance. And then the community that you have, the transparency has to change because you've got a completely different set of agendas that you have to think about. It's a really tricky situation, but I do think that fundamentally, going back to what I said earlier, I do think like if you are transparent, if you do bring people into your vision and that they can really have conviction in you because of the transparency and because of even just the belief in yourself, then you won't get that say. And same for investors, right? If you treat them right and you communicate with them right, you make sure that they're the right kind of investor when you get them. It becomes a lot easier to manage their expectations and a lot easier for them to believe in you even when times aren't great. Go ahead, Shell.
Yeah, I was going to interject there. But I think it really depends, right? I think when we talk about transparency, what does that really mean? Because in the end, if you're talking about actual TGE, if you're really focused on central exchanges and DEXs, like you kind of define those dates by them, right? It has to be a convergence of when things match up. And literally they do these things, days of leading up to it. And even as a builder, right, you think like you did everything you could, 100%, right? And then they say sorry, we're going to move the date 2 more days. And then what do you do, right? So it's at the end of the day, it's kind of like you still can only control what you can control. And having an audience and a community leading up to that, I feel like is also pivotal and important to like set the standards, right? I think when it comes to transparency is, again, providing a level of expectation that people better understand and taking the time to educate your entire group, right? Whether it's your investors, your team and your community. Because for me as a community manager, leading up to even just some of the mints that we had, I had to like set time aside for everyone to understand the gaming mechanics of like how the actual release and launch would happen, and talking to our mods and spending an hour or two of having like a Q&A session so that they were at the front line to actually handle the questions properly versus having to have us jump in, out of our day-to-day to make things work behind the scenes of a launch. And then, obviously tokens even worse, right? Because you have market makers, you have people coming in who are sniping, who are merging, who are creating all this chaos to go on all at the same time. And I think in the end, it comes down to just, again, maturation of the market of what can we expect and what we can manage. Because I've actually launched, a culture coin, right, over on Story Protocol. And that was 9-day different too, because, when you have lower volume, then it's kind of, you're more subject to buys and sells, right? Because you're like, we just don't have enough volume for us to be able to mitigate some of the volatility that comes in.
Yeah, super tricky. I think,
I do think there's a really interesting dynamic to this. As a community manager, you must have experienced that. I have a feeling that in the early days, the community members were treated as investors. They were treated like educated investors. And going back to what Sai was saying, that these community members were given sort of like the opportunity to buy into something, and now they just sort of turn up, expect to extract, expect to be spoon-fed to stuff, and they don't expect to contribute to get something in return.
I remember it felt like you were treating people as co-founders, right?
Exactly. And this is why the community doesn't get brought in, because imagine you say, okay, there's going to be some delays, there's this. Whatever asset you have will just get floored. Like absolutely instantly, whoever had size, whoever had volume would floor it. And that's where this building in, that's where this building in the open falls down, because we've all seen what happened in meme coin summer. The moment there's a whiff of a red candle that looks too big, everyone piles out of what could be a promising meme coin without any care of whether that would ever recover. They just don't just insta-dump. And because NFTs are more liquid, and because they were kind of the foundation of what land sales and all of these things, and because there was also the ability to actually recoup something on the fact that people were trading it. So if your NFT started off essentially for free or for a very, very low cost, let's just say even $2 or $3, right? If you're getting like 10% of that, and that has gone up to like $350 when they sell them, you're still earning like the same as you would expect for selling those NFTs the first time, every time they're sold. And I think what happened is we've got away from this idea that community are going to hold and all the rest because they've been over extracted. And that's the simple case. They're wise to it. They're not going to put in any money. They're going to see what prizes you do. They're going to see what airdrops you qualify for. There are now legions of KOLs who will tell you how to farm, who will tell you how to be in. And we had guilds, we had scholars, we had people teaching people how to min-max. And this is the education of, we've now created an entire industry about how to perfectly extract and destroy a project while contributing the least, because the projects don't do what they're meant to do. So we've literally trained people to be like, okay, let's vampire the shit out of this thing. And then all the service industries know that the projects are not going to work, so they have to jack the prices up. And I think 90% of people, 99, I'd hazard a guess, and I'd be surprised if I'm wrong, 99% of game TGE delays, 99% are because they can't afford the listing price. I'd say that's 99% of it. I would say that there is absolutely so much weird...
and all the other accessories around the listing, right?
Exactly, and the marketing that goes ahead with it. And like when I say the listing, it's the listing, the process. They can't afford the process. And what I basically want to say before I wrap up on that is, it's now the point that no project had or has raised enough money to decide when to GG. So sometimes they're just forced into it.
Well said. We've got Sponstar up on the stage. Welcome, Sponstar. Feel free to do a quick intro of yourself if you like. And let us know what you think about this. We're talking about Wen TGE, how things are changing, how different communities and different products are different, how kind of fickle the retail investor has become when it comes to their loyalty to a token when they see those red flags. What's your take on this? Wen TGE.
What's up, guys? Well, I was just listening in and agreeing with everything that I was hearing as a project that went through everything that you guys are discussing in terms of, yes, we have built an industry that is literally just vampiring the hell out of projects and that thinks that long term is 2 months, right? And you have all of these let's just call them infrastructural issues, which are market makers, KOLs, centralized exchanges that are really not aligned with your best interest and have a ton of practices which borderline criminal, in terms of how they're extracting value from projects. And I think there's a lot of solutions that are now being developed on the background. I was just on a call actually with L1X. I don't know if you guys have heard of them, but they're a multi-chain aggregator, and they delisted from all of the centralized exchanges and launched what they were calling a launch pool, which is a auto staking DEX basically. We've been also, we're probably going to go down the same route. We're going to delist from centralized exchanges, and we're partnering with a number of people that have been building anti-dump measures, and we are looking at having a very custom liquidity pool in terms of if short-term traders are going to pay really high fees. Holders are going to be auto staked and auto compensated, and we're building an automated market maker because we believe that any market maker is a loaded gun and it's literally waiting to shoot you. So it's been such an interesting market with so many challenges. All of the founders that I have spoken to that have projects that have real utility and have real long-term use. So what we do at Sponstar, just kind of like take a step back, is we're a fractional sponsorship marketplace, and we activate at some of the world's largest events, from South by Southwest to we're doing a big thing at ECC for a major L2, and we're launching kind of like a whole calendar of Web3 treasure hunt that's going to run throughout the year in all of the main events. So obviously, like, we're a long-term project, right? We're not looking to pump and disappear.
You did the treasure hunt in Denver, right? You did the Denver one, right?
Yes, we've done a treasure hunt in Denver
That was
before.
cool.
We've done New York Fashion Week. We've done Art Basel. We have done treasure hunts across the board, South by Southwest. And so we actually own the patent to the Web3 treasure hunt. We filed that 3 years ago. So we've seen a lot of like copycat projects that popped up, and we're not trying to kind of like bring the hammer down on anyone. We love that you guys are using our technology. It's like, that's why we built it, right? To get it out there. But the point is, you have to really kind of like be one step ahead of the criminals in our space. And the only way that you learn that is when you personally get burned. We got burned. I'm sure that everybody on this room has been burned in crypto at least once. Your wallet's been drained or something's happened. I literally called. They kicked me out.
We can hear you now.
Yeah, sorry.
X is being very ruggy today.
Yeah, no, and it's all and the maybe the centralized exchanges and the market makers are listening and they're calling in to try and stop us. But
That's
we got to
awesome.
think outside of the box.
I wouldn't be surprised.
It is one of those things, isn't it? That you get that kind of. It's not just Wen TGE, it's Wen Binance. And it's like the more people that are asking you when Binance, the further away that it's going to be. It's because we all know now that everyone's talking about. We're going to see these pages still on X where they're still playing the 2021 marketing playbook, and they're like the tier one exchange coming soon, and everyone's getting so excited, and then it's like something you've never heard of, and everyone's disappointed again. And then obviously it heightens that need for that tier one exchange. It heightens that need for that exit event.
And they know that, and that's why the tier one exchanges are just they will literally just put a gun to the back of your head and blow your project brains out. And that's just what they do.
Before I did.
Not even to mention the fact that they'll require marketing tokens, right? That you're going to give them up front. And this happened to us. Like, we hit our all-time high on the eve of our MEXC listing. We were at 70 cents. MEXC requested 333,000 marketing tokens. And if you don't give them the tokens, you don't list. It's simple. It's like, it doesn't happen. And on opening, they dumped the 333,000 tokens, taking us from 70 cents to 3 cents in 12 hours. And I've spoken to so many founders that have gone through the exact same experience. You don't think Binance is going to do the same thing? I feel like the only exchange that we'd consider, and in 3 years when we have 3 million holders, long-term holders, is Coinbase. To be very honest, after this whole experience.
And the same with market makers. They're just kind of redistributing funds and front running everything they do, right? Why wouldn't you? Like, who's stopping you? It's just really hard to find the right partners in that sense.
Exactly, and that's what decentralized exchanges were meant to solve, and then they've got their own issues now. I mean, it's very often that you hear complaints about how they do things, how they trade, and how they sort of also need the requirements of like multiple times the liquidity that they then somehow mysteriously manage to dump on you. But I think this is also indicative of one of the biggest problems that we've seen in the gaming space, especially, is that projects just haven't had the quality to sustain themselves without token go up, and that's just that.
Can I interject for a second? What do you think, though, as the effect when you work with a particular chain, right? I think that's one of the things we haven't actually talked about. When you work, with a given chain and they help you with, some of this liquidity, help you with some of this funding to help drive the volume that you're looking for, because they need it as well. Those partners, are they more visible now? Has that changed from 21 to 2025? Are you seeing, AVAX? Because, when I did these things with Story Protocol, again, this is completely different. It's unrelated to gaming. They really helped come through in terms of these things, because they were literally partnered in a way that your success was their success. And without that, I don't know if we were able to, sustain as much as we have and not rug, and just out of, the fact that these other exchanges, didn't wreck us. Right. So for us, they have a centric investment too with the decentralized exchanges on their chain. So it's just kind of like if you can control the manageable parts of it, you can find that hopeful balance to it. But I haven't heard other partners like yourselves, builders like yourselves, what's the effect that the chains have had for you guys that you've seen in the market?
Well, I'll take that first if nobody has anything, because we're actually working really close now with one specific chain, really big L2, and we're announcing hopefully in the next couple of days. Yes, it's super helpful, right? Like to have like a partner to that magnitude that is going to get you out in front of their own ecosystem, et cetera. But we've also had other chain partners that signed grant agreements and had their own liquidity issues during they got dumped by their own market makers and couldn't come through with our grants, and ended up hurting us because we were counting on that money. So the point is, like, they'll go through the same issues that we're going to go through unless they have, once again, millions of holders, millions of real transactions. So make sure you choose your chain partner very wisely, and have protection on your end as well if you need to pull away and pivot.
This really makes me want to shout out Maple Story, this whole conversation, to like come in with your own real money and put loads of it out there. Like, what a position to be in, It's just the nature of the industry that so many have had to deal with the devil, because that's how you get high risk funding. It's super tough. I'd love to have another conversation with you as well, Sponstar, about the kind of new approach that you're taking. It sounds like you've done really well to weather what you've been through, because not many, so many fall by the wayside from as a result of these kinds of minefields.
Well, and nobody said it was going to be easy, right? Yeah, it's kind of crazy as well. You'll see so many people that are going to abandon you during these periods, but at the end of the day, you just have to keep building, put your head down, and focus on the product. And if the product has real world utility, the crypto part should just be one part, right? It shouldn't be the end all, and don't put all of your eggs in one basket.
No, that is the absolute truth there. I don't know if you just momentarily rugged or if you were letting someone else jump in. But yeah, you need utility in the real world, whether you're a game or whether you're doing something awesome like that. I think Sponsor just dropped down to listener. Yeah, Space is crazy today.
I'm still seeing him as a speaker, but
no worries.
I think I'm still here.
You are.
We can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you. No, I just wanted to say, like,
too much truth.
Yeah, it's a lot of truth. It's a lot of truth bombs, and this is kind of why we do Walk, right? We want all of the games to have real world utility. That utility is fun, excitement, dopamine, cortisol, and that's the excitement, the thrill of gambling with your choice, or loads of different kind of methods that you can do that haven't been done before, and don't rely on the market to go up and the token to go up, and you to have infinite money to pay people like neurosurgeons just to click buttons. So there is another way. There is a brighter future. It's coming. And I do think community is going to eventually be able to play the role it did back in the day when you got rid of some of the crap.
Yeah, come full circle back to like a proper decentralized model for doing this, but with a bit more wisdom, a bit more realism, and a better investment thesis, and a better business approach to fulfilling the investment thesis.
100%. I mean, it's definitely something that we've been seeing a lot of when we talk to projects as Warp, is that the projects that want to do the right thing are often the ones that get like shafted the hardest, for want of a better phrase, and the ones that sort of take the sort of the tried and trodden path and kind of do it all as a lie. I mean, it's good. Yeah.
Well, when you don't have pure intentions, you don't mind if you rug with 20% of 100%, right? But when you come in with pure intentions and you want to give everything away and just make it happen and do what it takes so that you can fulfill your goals and your dreams, then It's easy to get taken for a ride in this space sometimes. It's just shocking, really, when you have this kind of conversation to be reminded how treacherous it can be.
It's almost like the bad actors target the good actors in a way, right? The bad actors don't try to scam the scammers. They always try to scam the people that are the real deal because they think that there's going to be like an unlimited amount of supplies and resources there to continue to fund because they
and you see, and you do see, I've seen it several times where teams have found themselves victims of Web3 and essentially decided to join the dark side and participate in it. Because you try and raise for a business in this industry that like a real business with the kind of naive rose-tinted glasses that it's going to be easy, and then you end up getting kind of manipulated into doing dodgy things. But maybe you've still got a big bank balance. You have the right conversation, and suddenly you're the market maker. It's not a good thing to see, but the good actors who prevail, they don't need to hide from anything. We'll still be here when everything else burns.
This is exactly the thing. Is like the brush fire will burn away, and then we'll see the new shoots of something much more special. To end on a more positive note, and I think this is just a benefit for the community. It's been overstretched, oversaturated, and who can really blame the community for being callous, for not believing any project, for not getting behind anything anymore, for dumping straight away, because they've had so much money extracted out of them in projects that have raised VC and then also extracted from community, then raised VC, and then failed to deliver. Yeah, you can say that some of it is unintentional. That's what happens with business. There's various ways of mitigating that, like at least in the way that most of these experienced business VC founders, what they do is when they're running out of money, they will pay back some money to their investors. Do they do that to their Web3 communities? Do they flip? Only the very best of projects, ones that don't deserve to die, actually do those returns. Unless there's some scammy thing where they're jumping from place to place. And I think at the end of the day, the worst thing is, it's like this sort of sunk cost fallacy. If your project has made you money once and it's transformed your life once, you might just keep hanging on to that until it bleeds you dry. It's like pig butchering, where they basically put some money into an investment. You put in 2,000, you get like 10,000, then they take you for 100,000 over the years. Like it feels like that, even if it's unintentional. It's the very thing of like you get the first one, it's free. You get the first one free, you get a little win, and afterwards it's all downhill from there. And that's why it feels so bad. That's why the taste is so bad when these things run, because they did make people rich at one point, or they did make them successful. And then they're just going to be loyal to that project, no matter how badly it starts to extract. And this is why I'm so surprised when I see KOLs on the timeline saying like, oh yeah, this project's going to wind down and just go on to an extractor again. It's like, we shouldn't be saying that about game projects. They should be trying to make new games. Maybe they make a good game. They certainly shouldn't be viewed in that sense, unless there's something just utterly wrong with the industry, and then they do deserve to burn.
What you said is really actually impactful, because what you were talking about is an actual studio that actually wants to build more than one game, right? You can't do that if your community and your base is just only about extraction, and and then these KOLs too, because the difficulty with all of this is you want to proliferate and you want to promote these studios that are doing it the right way. But if these people are doing and saying the things that they are, it just ends up where they end up having to rug and then reshaping, reforming as a new entity to kind of start all over again. But I think, where can we actually see the studios come up where they're successful enough that they can actually start expanding and growing, their base through other games, because that's where we start seeing successes, right? Of all these studios where they're actually able to last more than just one or two games.
Well, you said it before, Matt. In the Web2 world, you can release a game kind of in a stealth mode. If it's successful, you remove the stealth. There's just no such thing as that here. And I think what you've said several times, Michelle, is education. Because really you need to be investing in. They always say invest in people, and I think partly that's like, you know, if I invest in someone who I really like and they don't make it, it's okay, dude. I wanted to give you a chance. It didn't work out. But when it comes around, you want those games that like any studio should be able to try a second time, even if it didn't work out the first time. Building in public, it's complicated. Anything else to say, guys? I've really enjoyed this. I think it's super nuanced.
It's been nice. It's been very ruggy. It's been very deep. Just happy that people survived. I mean, you know, people have been dropping in and out. I guess there's other things to do, but it's just really nice to just spend some time chatting about these cool things. And this is essentially like our thesis. We do these things to give studios more than one chance. We want multiple shots on goal with the right team, and things take time. Things do take time, but things will change. I'm massively bullish on that. I'm on the bus. The bus driver told me off for speaking because he's got to say some stuff. So I'm gonna jump now. But thank you, love you all. Back hopefully bigger and better next week, but X is not playing out.
Yeah, nice one, guys. Great having you. Thank you to our guests for coming up and speaking. Thank you, Shao and Grim, for being on the stream with us again. Always great to have you. And we will see you next time for episode 10 of No Cap Gaming. Same time, 7 p.m. UTC. Thursday. See you next time. Have a good one. Cheers, guys.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much.